arts, entertainment and lifestyle. ChaKraTv. It never ends.
Hello and welcome to Simple Talks on ChaKraTv, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification. Today we are coming to you from the newest and the grandest hotel in Colombo, situated in Bamba Junction, and I'll put all the information in the description as well. Right, getting things started, welcome to Simple Talks with me, Minol Dee, and on the show today I have with me a well-known figure in the broadcasting industry in Sri Lanka, especially the English radio land. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
Pleasure for lifetime having you on the show.
Yeah, good, bro.
Right. To get things started, how long have you been in the broadcasting industry?
I started in 2000, so this would be my 23rd year now.
Okay. Over 2 decades of experience in the industry.
Yeah,
right.
Okay, yeah.
Take us way back in time. Was it something that you were born with? I mean, the gift of the gap that you got, or was it something that you groomed yourself in?
Okay, so I found myself in school always trying to be the entertainer. My job was to make the class laugh.
Okay.
And I did that from a young age, and I continued doing that into my high school and even into uni. I was focused on entertainment more than education, sadly. But now I understand why. Also, like if you're into, since you're on ChaKraTv, if you're into numerology, you would know that there are certain numbers that correspond with certain traits. In my case, I'm a number 3, which means I'm a natural communicator. My job is to communicate. So I didn't know all this till, way later in life, but 2 passions I had: entertainment in general and music. So that's how it all began. I used to listen to a ton of music as a teenager, and when I kind of got into my early adulthood, I thought to myself, what could you do to be in music? I couldn't produce, I couldn't play an instrument, I still can't do any of those things. But the one thing that I could do all day is listen to music. So I thought to myself, what can you do to listen to music all day? Radio came to mind. There was, back in the day, this thing called the Yellow Pages. I'm sure that many of you can remember, but I don't know if our newer viewers will know what the Yellow Pages were. But before we had phones, there was a huge directory this big with all the numbers of all the places and all the people in the country. So I looked up 2 radio stations were listed in the Yellow Pages back in 2000. We don't need to name the 2 stations, they're still around. But yeah, I wrote a letter to both of them, and boom, they were like, come in for an interview, and it all started in 2000, yeah.
So let's mention your school as well.
So I didn't study in Sri Lanka. My father is a former diplomat. Sadly, he passed away about a month and a half ago. So because of his work, I used to travel from country to country. Every 3 to 4 years, he would get a new posting. So I would basically go with him because I was only child. So that's how it went. I studied in Canada, I studied in Thailand, I studied in New Zealand, I studied in did I say Thailand? Because yeah, I did study there also. So yeah, it's been a multitude of different countries, so not one particular educational experience. Yeah.
Right. So your first radio experience, let's talk about that.
Yeah, we can. That was in 2000. That's when I joined EFM. I was just a presenter, and I did that for maybe a year and a half at that particular station. I started the evening show with another guy. Started as in my career. I started on the evening show. Then I was promoted to the morning show, where I did the 6 to 10, I think it was, for about a year or 2. And I left E in 2000, and I think it was 2. Went to the States for about a year or something, and I came back to SFM.
As we continue our chat with Mark Kross from the Pearl Grand Hotel in Bambalapitiya. Mark, I want to ask you, when you compare the 2 scenes, now you've been in the industry for more than 2 decades. When you started back in the day and when you compare the scene right now, how do you see this comparison? I mean, things have got improved a lot.
I would say technology-wise, yes. But personnel-wise, the people that are making it to the radio now, don't necessarily get the same training that we got when we started in 2000. That's one of the main differences I see. Like, we learned by and thanks to professionals who were in Sri Lanka, thanks to networks that hired international talent to represent, you know, their brands here in Sri Lanka. So I got trained by some very, you know, apt people that knew the game, and they've been at radio stations in the Philippines and in all sorts of places around the world. So that was really good for me because I got the foundation set in stone, and I was able to not only learn it, but then later on in life, when I became the programs director of a radio station, teach the newcomers what I knew through, you know, our internship programs and whatnot. Right now, I feel, yes, people are being trained, but not at that intense level from what I experienced back then. So, but on the other side, technology, I think that's the main thing here. When I started, we had to take like a tray of CDs, and we had to look at this thing called the playlist and choose the songs, and it was just like a pretty intense scenario. You weren't just going there to talk on the mic. Now it's more like you're just going in there to talk, because everything's automated. You can set up your commercials on the computer and the songs and press play, and it just goes on, and you pause it and then you talk and press play again. You know, it was way different back in the day. So yeah, technology wise, I think it's come a long way. So yeah.
Since you mentioned about the training that you got, let's mention a couple of names. Who have you got training from?
We had June Santana. He was on air as Steven Stone. Ramon Aniban. He was on air. Fat D. He's also an ancient guy in radio, even though no one knows.
The key word is ancient.
Ancient fossils.
We're furniture now.
And then we were also lucky enough to get like small training seminars in Singapore and this and that. So yeah, it's good.
So from what you're saying, what I gather is that the standard, the radio presenting, the standard has gone down. Is it?
Not per se the standard, but there are certain things, you know, you should and should not do on radio. Cardinal sins, you know. Little things go a long way, because this business is about the mind. It's about saying things that will grab the mind's eye, visually, not visually, but through audio. And there are tricks and there are ways to do that, and there are also cardinal sins that you should not do. So I notice a lot of those being carried out on radio because of a lack of training, not because, you know, they don't know what they're doing. It's just, actually it is that they don't know what they're doing. Also all the DJs that are, the radio personalities that are doing their thing on whichever radio, say no disrespect to any of them with what I said. It's just the fact that they would be so much better if they got that training. Let's clear that up. You know?
Let's continue our chat with Mark Kross from Pearl Grand Hotel right here in Colombo. Gone are the days where we consider radios for the listeners. Now it has become more client-oriented, business-oriented. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, see, the hardest thing about radio is finding the balance between programming and marketing, because you can't have either or. It has to be in synergy with each other. Whatever the programming comes up with concept-wise, the marketing has to be able to sell it. So when you listen to a radio station and their commercial belts are like 1 minute long, you know that radio station's not really making money. If you listen to a morning show and they have one sponsor, you know they're really not making too much money. So it's good to have a lot of commercial airtime being utilized on radio station, but for the listener it might not be the best because they're listening to commercials and not listening to content. So you can't really, you know, take away from either or, because they are part and parcel of the business.
Would you say it's 50-50 or 60-40?
50-50, man. 50-50 all the way,
But to add to that point, now we see a lot of radio stations going behind plans. They're like too many.
Because they need the money. They have to cover the overheads. They have to do a lot of things, and you know, the chairmen of these companies are not going to be happy to just bleed money with a huge marketing team and a huge programming team. If the money is not coming in, what's the point of doing whatever?
It's a business.
It is a business, you know. The listenership is what generates that revenue, because you go to a client and you tell them, listen, we have this many people listening to us every day on internet radio, and we can market your products to those people. So then they come on, you know what I mean? At certain points in my career, we've had like 18 sponsors on one show, you know. So the sponsors don't just come on because it's a cool show. They come on because they see results. You get what I'm saying? So
So as we are on the topic of sponsors and sponsorships, what would it take for a radio station to attract a client or even a show?
The numbers matter. And also, I guess the personalities, because some people, as I mentioned, have the ability to communicate naturally, and that is the most effective way to sell a product. To know that the DJ or the RP or whoever is doing the show, TV or radio, knows what he's selling or she is selling. So that is one of the key points.
So you mean to say that it is the name of the radio presenter?
Not the name.
Or the station?
Not the name. Like, the station plays a big role, because some of the stations are so big in Sri Lanka, they don't really need the RPs. Their brands sell themselves. If they're like number 1 or number 2 or number 3 on the ratings, automatically big agencies and big companies, they will have a chunk of that advertising going to 1, 2 or 3, because they need to safeguard their jobs and their best interest. So the safest thing is to say, okay, we're going to put your advertising budget on station A, B and C. Why? Because there are 1, 2 and 3. They have the highest listenership.
Right.
So
getting back to your current stint that you have with Kiss FM, how long have you been doing this now?
I think this is the 5th year now.
5th year. How has been the response from compared to the other station that you work for?
So I have been blessed to have a very loyal audience. They basically go wherever I go, and I try to minimize the movement from station to station, because that's the one sure way of losing your listeners. And you know, everyone needs to understand this is, you know, my bread and butter. So sometimes you have to make certain moves to ensure that the butter is bigger and the bread is also on the large side. You know what I mean? Because it is what it is, and time is the only thing, as I mentioned to you earlier, that you can't get back. So if you're investing your time, you need to be compensated in a certain way for that time. So I would think that currently I'm at the highest point in my career as far as all of that is concerned, and also as far as the listeners go, since I have that loyal base, they came with me when I migrated from the previous place to this place. So I was cushioned, and now thanks to my co-host Jem, shout out to Jem, who's going to be upset that, you know, I'm on this and he's not.
We'll try to get both of them in the next episode.
That'll be fun.
And we'll focus mainly on the Kiss mornings.
So like, that's also a marriage. Like, I have to give some of my success to the people that I have done shows with. Started off with Shaq, and you know, there's been so many different people along the way. Then for the last, I think, 13 years, it's been Jem. So it's a marriage. You know, he and I fight all the time. Sometimes even on the radio. But that's sometimes what people want, because you don't necessarily want some guy to just be reading the news like, oh yeah, and they also read it like from the paper, like today marks the first day of the anniversary.
It's not presenting Kiev,
you know, you have to make it your own. That's what media is about, right? You take something, you make it your own. So I've been blessed with many awesome partners, and the longest relationship I've had with on personality is, in fact, the guy I mentioned just now. So
let's dig deep into the partnership that he had. We cannot forget Shaq.
Cannot forget Shaq.
I think you hold the record for the longest radio show in Sri Lanka.
For sure. In fact, in Asia.
In Asia.
But the Guinness World Book, they had some things that they needed us to do, which we didn't really have the time to do. That is why it's not official. But from the Asian region, 89.5 hours, 89 and a half hours, which worked out to like 3.5 days or something. No sleep, a lot of food, a lot of coffee. But that happened.
That was at Yes FM.
That was at Yes FM.
How was that experience? Let's get more into it.
It was absolutely amazing, But the only thing is, we finished on the 25th and we had the tsunami on the 26th. So
2004.
all the achievements washed away. Yeah, that happened.
I think maybe it's time for me to renew it again.
I don't think the body can take that kind of scenario again, because sleep, you realize how important sleep is when you do things like that. When you stay up every day for 3 days, your mind loses it. And eventually Shaq and I found that we were just talking. We didn't know what the hell we were talking about. We were just talking.
Brain has shut down.
Brain was on autopilot. So yeah, we had so much support from not only the company but our listeners, and it was quite magical. And we would have had a lot more, fun with that if the tsunami didn't hit the next day. But hey, that wasn't our doing. So
So more than 2 decades in the industry, any fun incident that you can pinpoint in your career? I'm sure there's many.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
If there's anything that comes to your mind, what's the most fun part of being in radio so far?
Then you can actually, in my case, I can actually do what I do for free. I wouldn't want a salary to do this because it's a passion. This is the only thing that I'm passionate about. When I wake up in the morning, I know that I'm not going to do accounts. I know I'm not going to be seated at a table. I did the full-time corporate thing for about 16 or 17 years, but now I've gone part-time and I have to just concentrate on the program, which I do, and then I'm done. So I can do interviews, I can, go to the park, do some exercises,
go to the beach,
whatever. Anything can happen. So it's my time, my way, which is good. So yeah, I forgot the question too now.
Yeah. So let's get into the worst part. So then you remember the question.
So there's a lot of good things, but I can't, for like the life of me, remember one particular thing that was better than the other things. But there's been lots of good stuff. Bad stuff obviously have also happened, where you get pulled up for something you say, or a listener has not got a gift that they had won, or somebody feels insulted because of something you said or done. So there's been a lot of pros, a lot of cons, but I can't pinpoint anything in particular.
Any reason or any particular incident that you can remember where you got pulled up being on air?
Yeah, I think that was about maybe 5 years ago. I said something about the Dambadiva pilgrimage on radio, and the chairman calls me up and he's like, "Don't you know what Dambadiva is?" I was like, I do know. And he's like, "What's your religion?" I'm like, I'm a Buddhist. And he's like, "You're a Buddhist and you don't know what the Dambadiva is?" I'm like, I'm not a practicing Buddhist. That's what I said.
There's a difference.
Yeah, there's a small difference there. He seemed angry. He hung up on me, but then next morning, when he had summoned us to his office, he laughed it off. He's like, "You know what this guy did, right? And you know what he said, right?" So yeah, that was one fresh memory from not too long ago. But yeah, it's mainly the things you say and the repercussions that could spill over if you haven't thought it through. Like you say something about a politician and the politician knows the chairman. The politician's going to call the chairman and say, "Hey, this guy said this." So
any experience in that line?
Yeah, quite a few times. Yeah, quite a few times.
Any political cardinal errors?
Not really, but sometimes if you interview a politician and you're good at what you do, but they weren't ready for the interview, they get kind of defensive and also a little, I don't know, their ego maybe gets bashed up a bit.
They try to show who the boss.
Yeah, and then they're like, that boy that came, don't bear that, or whatever, who knows. But yeah, there's been a few incidents like that. But you as a presenter or a RP also needs to know how to understand the person and
balance it out. Yeah. When you compare the two industries, I mean, single radio and English radio. I mean, it's a mass market in Sri Lanka. But what are your thoughts? Like, are we lacking the number of registrations in Sri Lanka when it comes to English radio, or we have too many?
Well, we have a lot. So I think all the genres of music is basically covered. Whether it's the oldies, whether it's not 90s per se, but 80s. The 2000s. We do the 2000s and the newer music. rock is covered, then the lighter music is covered. So there's enough radio stations to cover the whole, you know, spectrum of different styles of or genres of music. But again, the creativity and the numbers are so different. Like, you know, English radio is like that in comparison, like you said, the masses with the Sinhalese radio stations. So the things that would work on the huge mass here are way different from the things that would work in a niche market like English. So the listenership is also so different, you know, like the people, the English speaking audience, they think a little different from the masses. You know, again, no disrespect, but you know, it is what it is, right? So
Let's, since you've been in other countries and you've done listened to so many other foreign radio stations as well, when you compare the two industries, what are your thoughts? The foreign market and Sri Lankan English radio. Are we up there at the standard?
Not exactly. See, foreign radio stations, depending on which country you're talking about, they really invest a lot of money in their promotions, in their staff, in their, you know, just about everything on all fronts of radio. In Sri Lanka, we kind of used to do that, I feel, in certain at certain networks, but now, like you mentioned, it's all about that money, and it's not really about entertainment or the wow factor when it comes to the listeners. So I think the listeners are also getting a little tired or bored of it, and that's why you see so much traffic going towards what's it called, digital.
Don't forget, we are coming to you live from Pearl Grand Hotel in Bambalapitiya. Now, speaking of digital world, there's a question that comes to my mind, especially with the innovation, let's say that, the internet, the mobile phones. What do you think about the listenership compared to the scene when you started back in the day and right now? Do we have the same listenership, or has it like decreased?
See, when you're on radio, it's one person doing what it is. The people that listen either like it or don't. When it comes to digital social media and TikTok and Instagram and YouTube shorts and Instagram reels and all that, it's on demand. You can watch what you want to watch at the time. If you want to watch cooking, you watch cooking. If you want to watch weightlifting, you watch that. But on radio, it's, you know, dependent on the person and how broad-minded they are content-wise. You know what I mean? So that's one of the main differences and one of the biggest disadvantages for radio, because people now have it on tap. They can choose what they want. In the 90s, you couldn't do that. In the early 2000s, you couldn't do that. Now you can. So
I remember the days where people used to send letters. Stations, postcards. We don't have it anymore now. It's all about let your fingers do the talking now.
Absolutely.
Right. Are you active on social media?
I don't know if you can call what I do active, but I'm on social media. I just, you know, for fun, tried a few things out on it. But yeah, in comparison to some of the other people, not per se in Sri Lanka, but radio people around the world, I'm like nowhere. Yeah, it's like one-man show. I feel I just share.
I mean, for a radio personality to be active on social media, will that help? To build your brand?
Any publicity is good publicity. And when you have a direct connection to, let's say, 5,000 people on Facebook, because that's the maximum number of people you can have if you have a personal page, and you click something, as in you share something and 5,000 people see it and you know they're going to see it, that's quite good, you know. And if you know you got, like, let's say 12 or 13,000 people on TikTok, one video is seen by quite a lot of people, but again, the algorithm, I think, slows the traction based on the numbers, and then wants you to spend on
I think we need to study more on the algorithm, which we do not actually understand fully.
Yeah, I mean, each of these platforms, they have their own algorithm. And all these filters that you find on TikTok and stuff, it's just collecting, you know, digital information about us. They're asking you to answer questions, and then, you know.
And the newest thing is ChaKraTv.
That's the newest one.
Don't forget to check that out.
Don't forget to check that out. I heard that
that's going to be big.
Microsoft has invested 10 billion on that project, and I also found out that ChatGPT will be a paid service soon. Once they get their, you know, house in order, and everything is going to be top notch when it comes to the results of whatever you have typed or given it, then they're going to make it. They're going to monetize it.
Yeah. So get on it. Do
And
it fast.
learn it. Learn it.
Learn
You know,
it.
learn it.
In your journey so far, who do you have to thank?
The universe.
Okay.
I have to thank the universe.
Any particular reason?
Because we are the universe, in my opinion. And when you have your thought and your heart align, you can ask the universe things and it will deliver. It's all about the mindset. If you're positive, you get positivity. If you're negative, you get negativity. Right? So that's from a universal point of view. But if I was to thank like people, then obviously, you know, my mom and dad, my wife, my kids, because it's always an experience. And again, it was a universe that brought those people to me. You know, so everything's interconnected and intertwined, if you will. So just thankful to be alive, and thankful that I have this as my gift and nothing else. So yeah, I'm just overall happy.
To wrap things up, I want to ask you any words of wisdom that you can give upcoming radio presenters per se.
Yeah, just find your passion. I mean, radio is radio, but then there's so many other facets of radio. You can learn radio productions where you image the station with the liners and the trailers and all of that. You can become a producer, you can become a voiceover artist, you can become a script writer. There's so many, you know, a news reader. You can do so many things inside radio. So find your, you know, speciality and explore that further and make sure you're passionate about it, because then you'll never fail. And you don't work a day in your life. If you're passionate about something, you're just, you know, doing your thing and getting paid to do it.
Absolutely. And don't forget to catch Mark on the his mornings every weekday, 6 to 10 a.m.
Correct.
With Jem, of course. Right. It was a pleasure having you on the show, Mark, and we'll catch you soon. And hopefully we'll get Jem on the show and we'll have a interview.
A trio. We'll have a trio.
We'll have a trio.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
Yeah. So that sounds like a plan. So we'll catch you again. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe ChaKraTv and keep watching. I'll talk to you again very soon. Until then, you have yourself a good one.